Okay, we're going to pick up right where we left off yesterday. I don't think we're going to finish the parak, but that would be awesome. Hilchos Deios Parak 5, halacha Zion 3. So we were in the middle of talking about speech, and this is in the context of Talmid Chachamim and how Talmid Chachamim should behave. So we go to Zion 3, which says, "V'lo yeshana b'diburo," he should not literally deviate in his speech, which really means to lie, right? That's a way of like engaging in deception of some sort. But the emphasis is on, we mentioned this when we did lying earlier. Genevas das is tricking the other person. Like that's putting emphasis on the victimization of the person, tricking them, stealing their knowledge or their mind. Yeshana b'diburo is putting the emphasis on the statement itself. How would you, I mean, is there a good word that we have for lying that puts the emphasis on like changing your speech? Hypocritical is really when your speech is not the same thing as your actions, which we also talked about, which was achas b'peh v'achas b'lev. So that is a category, just not, and this does partake of that. You're right about that. I'm just saying like the act of speaking.
Fabricating?
Yeah, fabricating is good because fabricating would be coming, I assume, from Yosef, like to add material, you know, or to make up, right? To make up stuff. But see, making up stuff also is slightly different than yeshana, changing your speech. Exaggeration would be a category of that, right? Twisting your words, yeah, that might be closer. Yeah, twisting is good, right? Shinoi, doing a shinoi in your words. Yeah, twisting your words. So you shouldn't twist his speech, and you shouldn't add or subtract. Only in matters of peace and other things like them. Okay, so that's the funny thing, is that's what we did when we did the exceptions to lying, that he lifted the actual categories about when you're allowed to be mashana b'diburo, which is much later in the Mishnah Torah than right now. So it's funny here he says kiyot behen, you know, as if like you know what he's talking about. And then Gazelle and Nevada is where he puts the other one. So you're asking about like the other source I'm referencing? Oh, here? Hard to tell from here, right? It sounds like he's just saying, well, so the case of peace is the one we know of where like you want to make peace between people. So you like bend the truth a little bit to make them like appease to each other. But I have no idea what he intends to include in Kiyot Behen. Okay. Davar, the sum of the matter, wow. That's radical. The sum of the matter is he should only speak either in acts of kindness or matters of chachma and other things. So what changed between how he told us to speak in Parak Sheni and this?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking the situation like that Parak Sheni was for everyone. This is for chachma.
Correct, right. But what's the factual difference, I guess?
Yeah.
You want to take a quick nap?
that was almost the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember the what he said? The only two categories of speech the average person should speak in.
Either, I think, either Torah or
right. Not Torah, I think. Right. It was chachma, I think. Yeah, broader than just Torah. Yeah, into Daled. You should only speak in matters of chachma or in words of chachma or words that are needed for the life of his body, for his practical needs, right? So here he's adding gemilus chasadim, and then he says kiyotze behen, which is just another like it's like if I say like the only thing you should bring on this trip is, the only thing you need to survive is matches, a knife, and other things like that. Like like that's very like only, and then other things like that is a little vague. Or am I the only one bothered by that?
No, I mean I think it does convey like very like high-minded goals.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's the implication.
Right.
I don't think, yeah, so I'm not bothered.
Right. Okay. You should not converse with a woman in the marketplace, even with his wife or his sister or his daughter. That's another Mishnah in Avos. Although the Mishnah in Avos does not say bashuk. It says al tarbet sichaim isha, vafil ishto. I mean, this might be a Gemara, but like the Mishnah doesn't say. Yeah. So what's the category in the halacha here? With the unifying theme, because he started off making it sound like he was going to talk about like lying, and then he went into general stuff and then a specific. Hard to get the unity.
Yeah.
I have a possibility based on the last one. I think the last one might change. Okay, maybe I got this. The last one might change our reading of the first two and explain the Piyot bands, but I don't know if I'm reading into it. So let's start with why shouldn't you speak to? Okay, so conversing with a woman in the marketplace. Okay, so I mean, like sometimes you need to do that. You know, like if he's selling stuff. You know, the Eish Kyle sells stuff in the marketplace. You know, but then once he says even his wife or his sister or his daughter, that's a little weird, right? So why do we care about that?
Footnote guy is not.
Oh, I'm not going to look at that yet. I don't want to prejudice myself.
Oh, I looked at him.
Yeah.
And it didn't help me.
What's your gut assumption about what would be bad about talking with a woman or with someone who you're related to in the shuk? Yes. Yeah, the appearance, it looks bad, right? Like this has happened to me twice, not with me talking to a woman in the shuk, but like I saw I think I've seen on a Facebook picture someone who was a rabbi like hugging this girl who didn't look like him at all. And I was like, that's a weird. And it was one of these things, you know, sometimes people tag someone else's like they tag you in someone else's picture and like you didn't give your consent to like put that up, you know. So I was like, this is awkward. And then like it was clear, oh, it was his sister. Like it's like much younger sister who like doesn't look like him, you know. And it was like, you know, like you know, there's that, and then one more case like that. So it looks bad, you know. And we said that a lot of these halachos are to avoid the appearance of impropriety in order that the rest of the nation can learn from the actions of the Chachamim. So based on that, I'm going to suggest that the first two clauses of this halacha are not legislative in terms, sorry, that's not the right word. Of course, they're not legislative. They're not essentially about the content of the speech. They're about how that content is perceived. Meaning, if there are halachot about when you can lie, that he dealt with in Hilchos Veda. But with this, it's people need to see that the only time he ever deviates from the truth is in terms of shalom and like acceptable categories. And the only things that people ever see him talking about are gimlut chasadim and chachma and other good things, like noble things. You know, so in other words, this is not telling us what he should and shouldn't talk about. It's saying how he should. It's saying how he should care about how the contents of the speech are perceived, or the way he speaks is perceived by people. And that's why it doesn't need to be as specific. And that's why like it goes into stuff that there's nothing inherently wrong with talking to your daughter, you know, in the marketplace, but like people can make mistakes, you know. Kind of like that, yeah. The difference being that Maris Ayin is going to be about like an actual isser, whereas this is more like, oh, it's weird that a chacham is doing this, you know, like people get the wrong impression, you know, like not like he's doing it, but like he shouldn't be, you know, being so loose with like lying, you know. Right. This is all about Talmud Chachamim. Yeah. This whole pair. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next. V'lo yichalech. Oh, now it's walking. Okay. Here we go. Lo yichalech Talmud Chachamim b'koma zekufa v'garo natui. Talmud Chachamim shouldn't strut. Right, that's the word. Shouldn't walk with an upright posture and an outstretched throat, like that. Yeah. Indian Shenemar, as it says, and this is a funny pasuk to quote, Vathelachna netuyos garon umasakrot einaim. They walked with outstretched throats and peering eyes. And it's funny because that's talking about haughty women, you know. But I don't know if that's like I mean, it is a very descriptive pasuk, so maybe just the best pasuk, but it's funny, like, don't be a proud woman, you know, like in your walk if you're a Talmud Chacham. V'lo yihalech akiv b'tzad godel benachas, and he should not walk heel to toe. Oh, okay, it says nashim, like the women, vigase haruach, and like the haughty, right? So like so it's funny because like why is that a way that women walk, and why is that the way haughty people walk? because I would think the first category is how haughty people walk, and that's definitely true. But like, what's the haughtiness in walking like heel to toe? And is it in common with women, or it just happens to be that both these groups of people walk that way?
Like this.
Yeah, like here's how I would. I'm gonna do this just to demonstrate. Okay, and don't like call the Hilchos Deios cops like that. You know, like small steps.
Oh, and that one?
I think so. That's true. That could be. Although I don't think their skirts were that like narrow that they had to walk like that. You know.
Yeah. Well, the thing I'm thinking about is like, why would a person do that?
Mhm.
I feel like a person does that to like make their walking look like dignified.
Right.
At the expense of like functionality.
Right. That's a good way to describe it. And so the dignity that they're seeking is for two different reasons. Like women do it like for daintiness or whatever. And the Gasei Ruach, see, I was thinking Gasei Ruach do it for like either like I'm sure like royalty doesn't run. Royalty, like they don't have to get to any place, in a hurry, or like we read in Seneca yesterday, like philosophers who are like going out of their way to walk humbly in a overtly like demonstrative way, like showing off, like, look, I'm just taking small steps. Look, everyone, I'm taking small steps. Look at me, how great I am taking small, so that could be in Nemar, I tried to go to Patuk. Halok v'tafok pilachna v'raglehem ta'akasna. Same pair. They walk v'tafok pilachna. Let's look this up. Oh, it is? Okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think this, if I remember correctly, this thing Yeshayahu is like a description of a bad bunch of women. 3:16 says, because Hashem said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, walking with outstretched neck and winking eyes. So he says winking eyes. I thought in Sakros is like peering eyes.
Like walking dainty, like
Right. So we'll see if he talks how you should walk. Says how you should walk in the next halacha. I can't remember. Walking with dainty steps, jingling with their feet. Jingling with their feet. So that's like shuffling, like I was saying. Yeah. Okay, so let's see if he says now. V'lo yarut b'rshut harabim v'yenhu b'shigayon. He shouldn't run in the public domain and act in an insane way. Okay. V'lo yichpof komaso k'balei chatoras. He shouldn't hunch over like, I think balei chatoras is like a hunchback. Ela mistakel. So here's how you should walk. Mistakel lamata k'moshu omed b'tefillah. Look downward in the way that you do when you're standing in tefillah. Umahalach b'shaveh. And you should walk with like equalness. I don't know what that means. I guess in like a measured way. Adam shu tarud ba'asakav, like a person who's preoccupied with his matters. I would demonstrate that if I knew what that looked like. I'll ask Isaac. He would be willing to demonstrate. Isaac.
Yeah.
So this is how he said you should walk. Okay. Mistaka lamata, look downward. Kamoshu omed b'tefillah. Umahalach b'shaveh, walk with equalness. We don't know exactly what that means. Adam hu tarud ba'asakav, like someone who's preoccupied with his like matters. Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, right. Yeah. So that's not really dainty, and you're. Yeah. That's I think that's pretty good. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, and then let's do one more, and then we'll try to come up with a theory about this. Gam b'mahalacho shel adam, even in a person's walking, nikar im chacham bal deahu o shote b'sachal. Wow. From the way a person walks, it is discernible whether they are a chacham who possesses knowledge or an idiot fool. All right. V'chein amar Shlomo b'chachmaso, as Shlomo said in his Shlomo said in his wisdom, V'gam b'derech k'shesachal holech libo chaser. Even in the way that a fool walks, his mind is deficient. V'amar lakol sachalhu, and he says to everyone, like he proclaims to everyone, I am a fool. Modia lakol al atmo shu sachal. He informs everyone that he is a fool. Okay, now obviously the Rambam does not mean this to be like an absolute rule. Like I don't think you can, like, for example, there are such people as actors. And like when they act, they have to walk in certain ways. You can't just like tell, like people can like artificially walk in certain ways, So what does he mean when he says that you can tell from a person's behavior, his walking, that he's a chacham or a fool. And this is the first time in the entire parak he said this, despite the fact that he started off with that premise that the chacham needs to be nicker in his chacham and deot from his actions. Like, in other words, all the other things up until now sound like if the chacham does all those things, then they will know that he is a chacham. Here he's saying just from the way that a person walks. Sorry. Before you think, based on the way that the chacham behaves himself, people will learn from him as a chacham, but not necessarily you could diagnose him. But here he's saying that the way he walks, you can tell if he's a chacham or a fool.
Also interesting that one of the things that nicker from his artist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily
Right. Yeah.
this is lower than the normal one.
Right. Although Amar Lakol Safalhu does sound like everyone can note the fact that he's a Safal. Like they might not care about it or like really appreciate what a Chacham is, but it sounds like everyone can tell that this person is a Chacham or a fool. I mean, I'm trying to think just of examples of this. Like, can you think of an example of like where you can tell from the way a person walks that he's a fool? Not just that he's doing a foolish thing. Like, yeah, if you run around like a crazy person in the truth to rob him, then you're a fool. But like, yeah, right. That's a good example, right? You can instantly tell if someone is drunk from the way that they walk. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I mean, there is a haughty posture that like you can sense.
Yeah, like the gym.
Yeah, right.
I'm imagining like in the runway.
Right. Yeah. Real prominent showing off. Yeah. Yeah. There's someone I know who's Chinese, who's in his 50s, and he once said, "I can't wait till I'm an old man because then I could walk like a Chinese old man and everyone will think I'm wise." But like that's like the China like hands behind the back, like walking like So like there is a category of that. It's just maybe we don't have enough chachamim in our society that like it's a category that you can like tell how chachamim are. Because like all the people who are identified as like intellectuals tend to be haughty. Like I'm saying, like in the society at large, not the Torah society.
Well, just like I think that posture of a person who's like lost in thought, and there's like.
How does it mean that you notice that like
Right. Yeah, I definitely noticed Rebbe's walk is distinct. Rupesach also, yeah, right.
It doesn't really have like a society.
Right, but this is not limited to the shuk. That would be a Isha thing. This is like like this you would theoretically be able to see like at shul or like on the street. Yeah. It is interesting just as a side point also how you can tell certain things about the way a person carries their body. Like you can tell when a person is like depressed sometimes or sad of like with like an inwardly drawn posture, or like when someone is like happy and open. Like there are certain things you can tell about body posture, but I just have not heard this particular thing of chachma or foolishness. But yeah.
I feel like
Yeah. I mean, there's one thing also that there's a much greater variety in foolishness for postures and or for walking. I mean, okay. Next, Malbush Talmid Chachamim. This is the garment now. The garment of a Talmid Chachamim, Malbush Na'ed Naki. It is nice and clean. It is utter for him for there to be found on his garment a stain or oil, like smudge of oil or whatever, and stuff like that. V'lo yilbash malbut malachim. He should not wear kingly clothes. Kagon bigdei zahav argaman, like clothes of gold and wool, purple wool. Shakol mistachlin bahen, that everyone looks at. V'lo malbush aniyim, nor should he wear the clothing of the poor. Shehub mavaze es loshav, which degrade the wearers. El begadim binonim naim, but middle of the road, nice clothing. So that's also like we read in Seneca yesterday, that you should neither wear rags and draw attention to that, nor should you like dress in fancy things. Yeah. I mean, this I think is the most self-explanatory of the categories we've read so far. Like, obviously, you're going to look at a person differently based on what they're wearing, and like if they have stained garments or like overly fancy and stuff. What are you looking at?
Maybe.
Okay.
I know you can say something about like what you wear.
Did he already?
I'm not.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. That was in chapter 2, at the top of the page. Or was it chapter 1 at the top of the page? Oh no, it was it's on page 121. But this is how you combat. That's how you combat haughtiness, right? You wear stuff that degrades the wearer. Yeah. Yeah. So that's he does use the same phrase. So you were right about that. Like if you're wearing rags and everyone's gonna look at you like you're some sort of like, like disgusting person, or like you can't afford like good clothing, then that's gonna like make you feel degraded.
Yeah, no, okay.
Yeah.
I find it in emo when I don't like it.
Like what?
Ripped jeans.
Well, if ripped jeans are a style, then I don't think people are gonna look at you that way. But if you're wearing like a worn out like t-shirt with like holes in it, like
But
that's
real,
yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Below Yehe Bisar near Mitachas Madav. What is Madav? Is Pugadav. Okay, so the footnote that his skin shouldn't be seen under his garments. Like through or under his garments. Kamo bigde hapishtan hakalim biyoter she'otim b'mitzrayim. Like fine linen garments that they make in Mitzrayim. So that's like sheer clothing, like you could see through the clothing,
Right.
Cocaine, I guess, if you could like see the skin through the clothing in general, like like tank top or something like that, Below yehu begadav sechuvim. No, but I'm saying like if we're worried about people seeing your skin through fabric, then kal v'chomer if there's no fabric there at all, Right? I mean, I think that's a reasonable thing.
Right.
Yeah. Velo yihiu begadav sechuvim.
Like tank tops are accepted.
Not the Talmid Chachamim. Remember, this is all about Talmid Chachamim, the entire parak. Velo yihiu begadav sechuvim al ha'aretz. They shouldn't. I assume sechuvim means drag on the ground from context. Kamo big de hagasei like those gasei aruach, like the haughty people. Like a cape. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, here also I'm thinking like. Probably, and maybe this is my naive assumption, fabric is expensive. So if you have garments that like trail on the ground, like again, like royalty, like a bride wears, that's like an excessive garment, like you can make many garments out of that. Why are you like making this into one? Ella at akevo, it should go to your heel. That's how, not deep, how long it should go. See, if anyone ever tells you, I mean, this is not really a fair comment. If anyone ever says, oh, there's no tznius for men, says you can't see the skin. It has to be like your garments all the way down to your ankles. Obviously this is only for Talmid Chachamim, but so that's why you shouldn't say this. But ubeit yad, see, even the sleeves. Ubeit yad shelo ad rosh et bosav. Your sleeve should be to your fingertips, right? Can't even reveal your hands. Yeah, that's what I mean. What I am picturing though is the old Chinese men. Like the robes that go down to the thing, and their hands like that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I again, presumably. Some of this is dependent on the society, right? Like, for example, if you're in a society where having sleeves that go to your fingertips is haughty, then obviously the Rambam would say not to do it, So, I don't know. I mean, presumably, unless the things, I don't know. Below yishalshel taliso mipnei shenir kagatsu. So ruach again, right? So it's very, very clear what he's concerned about is clothing are. He should not fold. I think his talus. I don't know. Let's look at the footnote there. Below Yeshasha Talito. Oh, sorry. After the screen reading halacha, because it goes on. Mipnei shenir kagas was a real because it looks like haughtiness. Ella b'Shabbos bilvad, only on Shabbos. Im ein lo lahachli, if he has nothing to change into. So that's a halacha that well, let's look at the footnote because I think the halacha says it. Below Yeshasha Taliso im ein lo lahachli. All right. Talis he habegah elyon shemisat fimbo. So the talis here is not like our tefillah talis, right? This is like your upper garment. B'derech klal al yidei haramas shulei habeged klape mala o kederech shirim hamavatlim mimalacham klape mata k'dei lach leich habeged. So I guess you fold the bottom part of your talis over to be the upper thing. I'm not really picturing what's going on here. And then b'Shabbos mukubal lilbosh bigad miyuchad. So on Shabbos is accepted to wear a special garment. V'im hadam ani, but if a person is poor, v'yesh lo rak beged echad, and he only has one garment, he's atif b'talis. But talito haragila dugmas hashirim. So then he should dress himself in the talis that he's used to, like the rich people do. Yeah, I think so. Okay. Velo yilbash minalim mitulaim.
Was he Chachamim?
Fold. I think, or drape, maybe is a better word. Velo yishashan minalim mitulaim beveged talae al gabi talae bimosachama. What does that mean? Mitulaim. Beluim umusukanim bechatichos or obad. So I think it's the sandals. You shouldn't wear sandals bimos hachama in the summer. No, that can't be, because bimos hachama is mutter. Let me just look it up in the chabad.org translation here really quick. Mishnah Torah. Where are we? Deos 5. Okay. What halach is this? 9. In the summer, you should not wear shoes that have often been mended and have many patches. You may do so in the rainy season if he is poor. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So one thing that's becoming clear here is what is the primary, given what he said so far, what is the primary dea that clothing relates to? Haughtiness, right? So, and I think this is not a chiddush, but clothing is self-expression. People express themselves through clothing, and that's why you could look at a person's clothing and infer certain things about the way that they regard themselves. So this is why this is different than like other stuff. Like let's say like like what do we have before? Like eating, like how a person eats, or like how they go to the bathroom. That's not self-expression. That could be many things. It could be convenient, but clothing. Because clothing, in other words, if we just wore clothing for practical reasons, everyone would just wear like plain robes. We don't wear it for practical reasons. We wear it to like look a certain way to other people and to express ourselves in some way. So that's why there's so much gossip, a ruach talk here. Lo yetze tamid chachamim mevusam lashuk. So tamid should not go out perfumed to the marketplace. Right, this is like a cologne. V'lo b'begadim mivusamim, and not with perfumed garments. V'lo yasim botim bisara, and he shouldn't put perfume in his hair. V'im mashach bisara b'botim k'dei l'havir zazuma. But if you wear deodorant, right, if you make your flesh smell nice in order to remove the bad smell, mutter. Right, so no cologne, but yes deodorant. Also, you shouldn't go out alone at night, unless he had a set time to go to his learning. All of these, interesting, all the categories because of suspicion. Right?
Oh, maybe he's going to a Kadesha?
Yeah, maybe he's going to a Kadesha. It's interesting that the perfume is for that reason, I mean, like maybe he's going on a date, yeah. Probably not. That's might be something that changed, right? Yeah. I mean, that's definitely I think that is what we do assume. Like if your friend shows up at like mincha and like has like cologne, you're like, oh, you're going on a date? Like you don't say, oh, you're going to a prostitute, Yeah, I don't think people have that chashad anymore. Yeah, start to reverse the trend. But also, I was going to say that I also don't know. Like, I mean, look, maybe it was just like me growing up, and most of my friends throughout the ages were not big cologne people. So I honestly don't know how popular cologne is in the world, but it's also possible that just because of the prevalence of it, that this would not create chashad anymore. Meaning, the first thing I was saying is that if you do have cologne, then people would assume something different than a prostitute. But now it's just maybe people don't assume stuff. Like people, let's say, like when you said put botum in your hair, like people put like hair products in their hair all the time or whatever, and like I don't think people are assuming things about that. Yeah. Okay. And he does not say, for example, about gasei ruach here, in contrast to all the other halachos. Like for example, like and there are certain things like, isn't that a famous midrash about Yosef that he would like look in the mirror and like comb his hair a lot, like, and that was like a gasei ruach thing. Yeah.
What about the perfume thing?
About the what thing? Perfume? Yeah.
Like a lot of like shampoos and things have like scent. And
that's another thing, right.
I mean, you have like scented hair, but it's not
right.
Like.
I don't know. I mean, if you read like the stuff that the Navi uses when he's talking about like cleaning things, it's like chemical agents that
lime and like.
Yeah, right. I don't know if it smells nice. I mean, they used to. I mean, this is. I honestly don't know. I mean, look, in the 1800s, they were making soap out of mummies. I mean, I don't think that smells nice. Yeah.
It's like a harsh, the things that it says in that. It's lime and niter, that's what.
Niter, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which
then
I still don't know exactly what niter is, but I've looked it up many times.
Neither, but
Yeah.
I think it's a harsh substance.
Yeah. Okay, next, kilkul dvarav, which I don't know what that means. We read this earlier. Talmud Chachamim mechalkel dvarav b'mikvat. So he should manage. That was mechalkel. He should manage his affairs with measures, in a measured way. I think mishpat means measure. Or moderation maybe is better for mishpat. He should eat and drink and sustain the members of his household according to his money and his success. He shouldn't burden himself more than necessary. Okay, so this is like the challenge in this day and age, right? Like we mentioned earlier, the Rambam held, we didn't mention it in this year, but we mentioned earlier, the Rambam held work 3 hours a day and learn 9 hours a day, right? Nowadays, like good luck finding a job that A, allows you to do that, and B, allows you to maintain the standard of living that is considered just normal here, like having a house with running water and air conditioning and like multiple rooms and multiple beds, like those were all luxuries back then, so now this applies more than ever. You shouldn't be matriach of yourself more than necessary, but we're already in that state. Like that's how we start off. Like just to afford like a private school education for kids is like a fortune every year, so good luck with this. Sivu chachamim b'darchei eretz shelo yochel adam basar ela l'teavon. That's derech eretz. I've never heard. Okay, what? Okay, derech eretz is a vague term, right? We use it for many things. The chachamim commanded, which is the first time we've seen that here, I think, in this parak. The chachamim commanded in derech eretz, I guess by way of derech eretz, to not eat meat except out of appetite. Shneimar ki sa'aveh nafshecha le'echol basar. For it is your soul's desire to eat meat. That's weird. So this is not for health. And this is not in the stuff about eating. This is the stuff in standard of living, right? It's enough for a healthy person to eat from Erev Shabbos to Erev Shabbos, right? Just once a week. If you keep keto, then you should eat meat every day. Okay. No one. Okay. No one reacted.
I was amused. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was lack of amusement or not, or spacing out.
No,
I was
movements.
I noticed that and I was like excited, actually.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I was trying to figure out if you were like making a comment about how keto is wealthy.
No, I was making a joke about how expensive keto is. Yeah. If you're,
I
it is,
didn't know that.
because you're eating meat a lot,
Yeah.
If you are wealthy enough to eat meat every day, then you should eat it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think there's a thing that it's not good to accustom yourself to eating meat unless it's like, unless you know it's a sustainable lifestyle for you.
Well, it's interesting. He says te'avon. It'll work out that it's sustainable for Erev Shabbos. And when he says dailo labari, that sounds like he's saying health-wise, you're not going to lose out if you're only eating meat once a week.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking for the te'avon is like, I'll give you a personal example. So when I first started teaching, then I would only buy myself sushi if I either had a really bad day or a really good day. Like if I had a bad day, I would console myself with sushi, and if I had a really good day, then I would reward myself with sushi. And then what happened, and this is kind of a result of the fact that I had fewer bad days and more good days, it became a weekly thing. I just ate sushi every week, And that's like a thing where like sushi is our meat, in the sense that sushi is much more expensive and like luxurious than meat, like we're not talking health-wise, right? We're talking like in terms of like as a luxury item. But I suddenly just got into this pattern of eating sushi every week, And I think what he's saying is don't fall into that pattern with opulent foods like meat, where you're just doing it out of habit. Do it when you desire it. And if you're worried about health, it's enough to have it once a week,
I see it.
Yeah. But then he also says, though, if he is rich enough to eat every day, then you can eat it, which means that this is not an intrinsic thing. That's where I would say, like, it is being careful not to live beyond your means. But if you can do it and enjoy life more by having meat every day, then by all means, go for it, Yeah. Very interesting halacha. Yeah.
Yeah. As long as not by all means. As long as just
Yeah, right. By moderate means, yeah, that's true. Yeah. I was going to say one more thing also, which is that you wonder what the Rambam would say. So this is the dilemma that we find ourselves in today with healthy food. It is a lot more expensive to eat healthy food than to eat unhealthy food, because all the unhealthy food is processed and like cheap ingredients and like corn syrup and all that other stuff. So you would wonder how the Rambam would advocate reconciling the health dictates of Perek Daled and like the means of living dictates in Perek Hay here, you know? I mean, this is only for Chachamim, presumably, but like, you know, it's like, what if in order to eat healthy, like if you want to make smoothies every day, you got to buy fresh fruit. And like that's, I mean, I know he says never eat fruit, but like, but like a kale, you got to buy kale, right? Like he doesn't say anything about kale. He didn't know about that, but like kale is expensive, you know? So like, how do you balance that out? I mean, he says, Kedei, yeah, shows the shows the zan es anshe beto. You know, now zan here, I mean, plain shot is give them what to eat, but like presumably it's like mazon, like after like taking care of their needs. Okay, tibu chachamim, more tibuyin, v'amru, and they said lo olam yocha adam pachus min haroi lo lefi mamona. Okay, so now he knocks it down a notch. A person, no, he doesn't, because he said it differently last time. Above he said he should eat and drink. Oh, no, he does. And sustain his people according to his mammon. But now he's saying a person should always eat less than is proper for him, for his mammon. V'yovash karoilo, and dress according to your financial status. V'yechabed ishto banav yaser min haroilo, and honor your wife and kids more than is roy for you. Yeah, that's an interesting directive there. I want to stop and think about it for a second. Eat less than your mammon. So, okay, maybe this is just jumping here. Practical level, what expenses add up the most is what you eat every day. You know, like from a purely financial standpoint, if you're going to cut back on something in your costs, cutting back on your meals in terms of like the quality of food you buy is going to be a good place to start. You know, Yilbash Karoilo is more important because the Talmud Chachamim cannot be seen to be drabby or like not attired properly, whereas they're not going to necessarily see what you eat, especially if you're following those other rules of eating at home. And then the Chabit Ishto Banav Yamin Roy, I can see that being a perception thing also. Like the fact that like this guy, like this Talmud Chacham is not rich, but like he bought his wife a beautiful like new dress for Yom Tov. Like that says a lot about the fact that he values her and that's like a good thing. Or like I saw a thing of what was it? You know Humans of New York? Yeah, it's funny. I don't think it is on my page because I'm from the Facebook era, but is this guy is like a photojournalist and he takes like pictures around New York and eventually around the world and like has captions and like he had this picture. He was in Pakistan and there's this like this guy who looks like he's in his 20s or like his 30s, and this guy who looks like he's in his like 60s, who's his father. And the younger guy telling a story is he says, one time when I was really young, then I told my father that I really wanted a bike. And suddenly, like later on that week, I had one. And I noticed that my father had this ring that he always wore, and it wasn't there anymore. So I asked him as a little kid, like, what happened to your ring? He said he lost it. And then only like much later did I find out that like he sold the ring to buy me the bike, you know, like that kind of like family dedication is an admirable quality that, I mean, it's admirable intrinsically, but it's admirable to display. Like, I think it says a lot about a man that he cares about his wife and kids in terms of making them happy, even beyond his means. Okay. Derech Bale Dea. Okay, now we're not talking about Chachamim, we're talking about Bale Dea.
I was going to say one
Yeah.
thing about the
Sure.
approximate or the
Yeah.
I think if a person's financial status changes,
Mhm.
then you're already accustomed to having a cheaper diet.
Right.
And so
Meaning, like, you're saying that this prescribed course is like recommendation against the eventuality that if their finances change. Yeah. You're saying like another benefit.
Right. It provides you a good buffer.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I also don't think that's what I'm saying, but I think it's good. Yeah. Right. Then you would go down. Also, that's a good point. Yeah. Derech Bale Dea. Now, is this people who have deos or people who have knowledge? Dea, right, would be knowledge, I would think. It's the way of people who have knowledge. Sheyikbalo adam malacha hamafarnesas oso tchila, is that first the person will establish for himself a craft, like a work that sustains him. Okay, I mean, step one, get a job that pays your needs. The achar kach yikne beis dira, then buy a house. The achar kach yisa isha, and then afterwards get married.
Oops.
Yeah, I think this is not common nowadays, right? I mean, it's common in the world, but in the Jewish world, I think, or the firm world, I should say. I think a lot of people, are they don't buy a house until like down the road, and they will often still be in school, like when they get married,
Yeah, I think, in modern society, this would mean like waiting like several more years to get married.
Yes, that's also true, right?
And so,
right,
yeah.
and several more years from a later point.
Yeah.
Meaning back then, people would start working earlier, and like they'd also get
get married at 15.
get married at 15, right? And I assume houses were much cheaper.
Yeah, if you're starting to work at 13,
Yeah.
that's different than
Yeah, you could retire at 20. Yeah. What were you saying, Muddy?
I don't think
That one.
I know. Yeah, I also don't think so. Yeah, he would say what? Yeah. Shenemar, as it says, this is a cute little drasha. Miha-ish, this is by the war, right? By the people who are exempt from going to war. Miha-ish asher nata kerem below kilalo. Who is the man who has, they say, planted a vineyard and not inaugurated it. They say, I don't know what it means to inaugurate a vineyard. Asher bana by Scottish, who has built a
I
house.
think it's on Karamavai, I guess.
Oh, yeah?
I think so.
Okay.
No, true.
Asher eras isha, and who has engaged a woman. So that's the order, right? Is vineyard is livelihood, then house is house, and then woman is wife. Yeah, interesting. So what does it mean, derech bale dea? Sounds like you think it's a practical order.
The smart people.
The smart people do this, right?
Not
I mean,
Chachamim.
right, and this is not like a Deos thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it might affect your Deos, or it might stem from having bad Deos about how you manage money. But like, it's like this doesn't make sense. Like, what are you gonna do? Like get married and then like start raising a family when you don't have a place to house them? Like that doesn't make sense. Or when you don't have money to put food on the table. Like, yeah. About hatipshim. To the other side. But the fools, first they get married. The Afrikach im timsa yado yikne bais. If they are able to, they'll buy a house. But Afrikach besof yamav, and afterwards, at the end of their days, yachar levakish umanus o yisparnis mina tzedakah. Then they go and they seek out a craft, a livelihood, an expertise, whatever, and they get supported by tzedakah.
And it makes you feel better. You're in the same boat as like the majority of
Yeah.
them.
So if they jumped off a bridge, would you? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. If
Yeah,
you
right.
feel better,
Right.
you're not only one jumping off the bridge.
Yeah, it's a good point though. By the way, don't jump off. No, the good point is there are, and I'm saying this like from a more from a Mishlaic standpoint. I'm not in the Hilchos Deios framework, but like when your society is entirely crazy, then new protocols are called for. In the same way that the Rambam says, if you follow these health dictates, then I guarantee you will never get sick and you won't need a doctor. Unless you have a pre-existing condition, or unless like you've had bad habits for a long time, or something, like a sick person needs a different regimen than healthy people, and in certain areas. And the question is like, how do you decide that? Like, like there are people also who hold, like let's say for example, I do think that the standard of living is higher in the frum community, and you do need to make more money than just enough to like feed your kids like oatmeal every day for their nutrients, But on the other hand, if a person said, "Oh, I have to work like an 8 to 8 job, and like I don't have time to learn," like then we would say, "No, you got to make your priorities straight." So like some areas when society is crazy, then you have to like modify what you do, and sometimes you have to keep the Torah's priorities in that way. Okay, he goes on. Oh, guess what happens? It also says in the curses, Isha se ares. ... bias tivne ... It reverses the order, right? Because the people who are getting the klalos are fools. The actions are in the reverse. So that you will not succeed. That's interesting. See, okay. I'm going to say the Hamevin Yavin point here. This is a perush on what the klalos are. Right. Okay. Uva bracha mahu omer, and what does it say in the bracha? Vayhi David lachol darachav maskil v'Hashem imo. That David was intelligent in all of his ways, and God was with him. Yeah.
He said Torah is
Mhm.
Is that with the person? Is that in the stage of the person doing actions, or is that the flows that come on a person for some other actions?
Let me read in context just so you get the whole pasuk. This is Devarim 28:30.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, that's a long pair. The pair goes 59. Wait a minute. I forgot. We teach out with all one thing.
Well,
29:30.
not real.
Or sorry, 28:30. 28:30.
Yeah.
You will betroth a woman, but another man will lie with her. You will build a house, but you will not dwell in it. You will plant a vineyard, but you will not redeem it. Yeah. So it lists the clause afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yud Beis. V'atar la'adam lahafkir or lahakdish kol nechatzav. It's up to a person to make all of his property ownerless or to sanctify it to mikdash or whatever. V'yatriach al habrios, and to become a burden on people. V'lo yimkor sadeh v'yiknei bais. He shouldn't sell a field and buy a house, right? V'lo bais v'yiknei mitaltlin. You shouldn't sell a house and buy movable property. Or do business with the worth of his house. No mortgages, or no. What do you call it? Yeah, mortgage. Yeah, right. Aval mocher hu mitaltlin v'koneh sadeh. But he can sell mitaltlin to buy a field. Klal shel davar. The sum of the matter. Yasim magamaso lahatzliach nechasav. A person should make his goal to succeed in his property. V'lo lihisnaot ma'at, and not to l'pisha, not to get temporary glory, right? Lihisnaot is to make yourself beautiful a little bit temporarily. Olehanos ma'at v'yafsid harbe, or to benefit a little and then lose a lot. I mean, like let's say for example, people will go into credit card debt to get an expensive car. That's like just for the appearances. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So what's just make sure we're on the same page? Plain shot here about not selling the field to buy a house and that stuff. What's the reason?
You shouldn't put your livelihood in jeopardy to progress a little further.
Oh, I thought it was the opposite. I thought his point here is, I mean, what you're saying is true also, but with the sadeh and the bias, a sadeh is a profitable endeavor. A house is not. Like if you have a sadeh, you're going to be generating income from that, and then you put it into a house. Houses don't generate income. You have a house. Real estate has a certain value, but like metaltalin, whatever, and like that. Right. You can have a tenant, but not if you sell your house.
Yeah,
right.
Just about this thing. He said to mark your property.
Yeah.
All of the property.
Right.
There's a it has like lots of verifications in terms of like running.
Yeah.
If you say that all of your animals are, if you say all of your animals harem, it doesn't take effect because you're not allowed to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think we can finish this. Masan umatanan shel Talmidei Chachamim be'emes uve'emuna. The business dealings of Talmidei Chachamim are in truth and faithfulness. Or I guess honesty would probably be a better translation. Honesty and faithfulness. Omer alav lav vel hin hin. They say regarding the no. They say about the yes, right? You don't have to like read between lines like when he says yes. Yeah, right. They really means no. Medaktik al atmo b'cheshbon. He's exacting with himself with calculations. V'notin u'mevater la'acherim k'shiyifach mehen. And he is giving and overlooking for others when he buys from them. V'lo yedaktik alehen, but he's not medaktik with them. V'nosin dmei halakach la'alter. And he should give the money of the purchase immediately. I mean, you don't make them wait.
Not the altar.
Yeah. Ve'eno nasa lo arev v'lo kablan. He doesn't make himself, okay, I always forget these terms, a guarantor or a kablan. What's the kablan? I always get mixed up with these financial terms here. That sounds like a good word from that short. So let's see. Okay.
That's a guarantor.
Guarantor or, okay, this is cheap.
Yeah.
Kabbalah says he does not act as a guarantor or accepts objects for deposit. They don't come up with a word, but yeah, what do you say? An acceptor, yes. A collateral acceptor. V'lo yavo b'har sha'a, and you shouldn't come to. So the Kabbalah translates this as you should not act as a debt collector for a lender. What do you a loan shark? Or you shouldn't be a loan shark. Or not a loan shark. Yeah, bounty hunter. Yeah. Right. Wait, what is a loan shark?
A loan shark is when you lend people money.
But not the one who goes to collect the money from people, like a
No.
creditor, right?
Yeah.
Or no, the creditor
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
bounty hunter. Yeah, what?
Debt collector.
Debt collector. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. Okay, fine. So what? Yeah. What's the thrust here? So the honesty part we can understand, especially for both for justice purposes and for appearance purposes, and for midos purposes of being willing, like they keep the change. Like that's that shows that he's not really attached to money. That's a good thing. And I guess he doesn't get himself involved into financial entanglements. This can't be good for your relationships as a Talmid Chacham. Talmid Chachamim, if people are like looking at you as like coming to collect the debt and stuff like that, and like being involved in like it's just steer clear of all that. Kind of like not obviously he's not saying the same thing, but kind of like probably he would say if Rambam knew about politics now, don't become involved in politics if you're a Talmid Chachamim, in the sense of like needing to make all these like alliances and like deals, and it's like not going to be good for your Talmid, for your Chachma or for your reputation. Yeah, probably. It's just like now it's just
Isn't that like in novels?
it is an obvious, yeah. Yeah. Altis Vada La Rashus.
What do you say about the people that do it?
Right. It shouldn't be Talmid Chachamim. And look, I mean, we have plenty of Talmid Chachamim who did it, in time of the Tanaim, and they had to, and it was good, but they, not good for them necessarily. They got themselves into trouble also.
What's that
Okay,
show?
more.
Harsha, like Mordecai. This said, collector of debts. Yeah, collector of debts. Yeah. Okay. Machayev Atzmo b'divrei mekach u'mimkar b'makom shelo chiba oso Torah. Person should make himself obligated in matters of buying and selling in places that the Torah did not obligate him, kedei sheyamod b'diburo v'lo yishanehu, so that he should stand by his word and not change it. What does that mean? He should like go out of his way to create obligations onto himself in business, like when he doesn't have to. Oh, okay, I know what it means. When you don't have, meaning there are areas where you're not actually like financially responsible for this, like from not midin, from shiur by the letter of the law, you have no obligation in this, but you should treat it as an obligation so that you can be a man of your word and not change it. Like let's say for example, there's a case where like I agree on something, some deal that we have, and like I promise you a certain price, and like the prices change, and according to halacha, like we didn't do the deal yet, so like I don't have to. Oh, that's the famous story, right? Like the guy was, what was it? The guy was davening, and someone came up to him and like made him an offer and didn't realize he was davening or something like that, and then like. So the davener didn't respond, and I made the offer higher, and then finally the guy stopped davening, and he said, "I'll take the first price you mentioned because you didn't know that I was davening." And the fact that I mean, if the guy's actually offering the higher price, he could say no one would know, but he's obligating himself in the honest thing, Yeah.
My dad was telling me about something like this recently, where he's into there's something in a contract involving him and someone else.
Yeah.
And the other person did not want to stand by what the contract said.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was talking to a Rav about it, and apparently the contract is not enforceable.
Mm-hmm.
And so the person was going to not follow what they agreed upon.
Right.
Because and it was the whole thing because my dad was making plans based on the
Right. Okay. If others become liable to him in din, marif lahem, he should prolong for them, meaning give them a lot of time, or marif it might be prolong his anger, but I think marif is time. And he should forgive them, and he should loan and be gracious. He shouldn't descend into the business territory of his friend. In other words, poaching clients from him or whatever. And he should not afflict any person in his life. Yeah.
After their dead, though.
Yeah. What?
What's
Yeah, that's what I thought also. Yeah. So either he must mean even beyond the areas of halacha legislates, right? Isn't that the classic case like with the fish or something like that? Like if you're fishing in a certain area,
Yeah,
like I can't
something
go.
like that.
Yeah. So it's got to be, you
And
know,
isn't it more talking about if like one's owning and at the same time?
yeah, right.
And like I guess.
Yeah, competitors. Yeah, it's not a pure, you know, as much as there are a lot of from Jews I know who are pure capitalists, Torah is not a pure capitalistic system.
Maybe that.
Yeah. And that's an example. All right, swallow the davar. Yeah, that's exactly it. The sum of the matter is, yihi min hanir dafim v'lo min harotim. You should be those who are pursued and not those who pursue. Doesn't mean you should do things to make people upset to pursue you, but meaning that you should not be the one to like chase after people. Lo min hane'elavim v'lo min ha'olvim. You should be one of those who are insulted but don't insult back. And someone who does these and all these things. By the way, he's not talking about finances anymore. He's talking about everything. And he said to me, my servant, you are my servant, Israel, in whom in you I take glory. So it is a kiddush Hashem in that time. I mean, he doesn't use the phrase kiddush Hashem, but he's quoting the topic about how when Talmidei behave this way, then God is sanctified or is glorified. I mean, I've heard of this thing. Yes, the wrong man. Yeah. Yep. Okay, we finished the parak. Yay. Okay, stop recording.